Hey guys, welcome back. This is version 2 of the NCAA betting sheet. I wanted to go ahead and update the link because I've made several changes to this since I first created the tutorial. So the changes that we're going to look at today, we're going to do a rough overview of the sheet. We're going to look at 3 games, and then I'm going to show you the new things that are in the sheet that was not in the last tutorial. So here you can see enter Vegas line for the bottom team. So here you have to pick both teams. You can either type it into the box or you can pick this drop down, and they're all in alphabetical order. And then the bottom team, this is where you want to put the spread. So if they're minus 10, we're going to do minus 10. If they're plus 5, just put in 5. Now, I believe Central Michigan was minus 1.5. And it's always going to be this bottom team here, the spread. If you don't know what the spread is or you want to see just straight up, just put 0, and then you can look at all the stats. The spread, the only thing this is going to change is this little number right here is going to pop up. This is our line versus the spread. So we're 5.9 points different. So in this particular game this weekend, Central Michigan was favored 1.5, but our projection said Western Michigan should have been favored by about 4.4. So we have a difference here of 5.9. So this is an easy way to look and see what the differences are, and maybe you only play games that are a difference of 5 or more, 3 or more, 7 or more. Everybody's got their own process. And again, this is all the same up here. We've got the overviews of offensive, defensive ranks, so you can see offense versus defense and how these teams line up against each other. You can also look at the specific yards and then the ranks for those yards, and then what the defense is allowing for specific yards. And this is good when you're looking for a path of success. And this is what I call our success path down here. So this is going to show you run game versus rush D for both teams, pass game versus pass D for both teams. And then I've got a little pop-up here that just comes up and says, neutral, significant upgrade, downgrade. So if you don't want to look at the numbers, you can just look at these little pop-ups here and it will tell you. And these are just showing the difference in the ranks. So if I need to make changes later or I want to calculate something new, I can do it rather quickly. And then over here we have the 2 teams, records, average points per game. We have the rough projection model for rushing, passing yards. This is just averaging them out for both sides. And then we get a total yard difference. And then we have the basic YPP, which is the yard per point for each team. And then we have a manipulated number if there's a significant difference between offense and defense, and we'll talk about that later. And then we have basically 3 models here that's spitting out a score. So the FEI score is not ours, so we're just taking our total and we're splitting it up based off the projected line, based off the FEI ratings. And so it says this game would be 39-35 with Western Michigan winning as a dog. So them by 4 points. And then these 2 models are ours. And so this projected score, it's 40-33 roughly, 41-33, however you want to look at it. So we have them winning by about 7.5 points. So round it up, say 7-8 points, and they're getting plus 1.5. So that's a difference of about 9.2 points. So that's something we want to look at. In this particular model, and it's pretty much, actually it is identical. And same thing, 9.2 points. So you can look here at this bottom line and see what the spread cover is. So if they're getting 1.5 and we have them winning by 7.7, we have a 9-point difference on both models. Now, the biggest question that I can foresee coming up is what are the difference between these 2 models? So this first model here, this is the rough overview. So this is just looking at offense versus total offense, total defense, total offense, total defense, breaking it down, and then we manipulate the yard per point if there's a significant difference. I believe it's 50 ranks different. We're going to move it between 20 and 25% and recalculate it. Otherwise, we're just going to use the normal yard per point, and then we're going to project a score based on these calculated rushing, passing, and total yards. That's where we come up with this. However, when I was doing that, I noticed it was really good, but there were a few games that were kind of outliers, and I started looking into them, and I noticed that here in the success path, you would see something like, let's say, Central Michigan is the 24th in rushing yards per game, and maybe they're facing the 130th rush defense, but their overall defense is say 67th, but you got one here where it's just a huge gap, and say, okay, their path to success is going to be running the ball, for example. So what I did is I did a different one. So this model isn't looking at total, it's looking at the specific rush versus rush D, pass versus pass D, and then based off of these ranks, instead of these ranks, it's calculating it more specifically based on these numbers. And the reason is you might have let's say Western Michigan might be the 90th defense overall, but maybe they're the 20th best run D. Well, Central Michigan's best avenue is their running game. Well, that's going to create some static. But if you look here, it's got 90-90, it's a wash. But if you look at this model and there's a significant difference somewhere, and I think we'll see a game that will show one, then this model is going to change it a little bit. So we can look, see if they're both going to cover, if they're split, so you kind of know how these two are made. Another thing that comes up is when you get a team like Liberty and NC State. Let's look at that one real quick. I didn't have this one on my list, but this is one, and I think NC State was minus 4.5, 4 or 5. It bounced around. So you can see we have a difference here of 5.8 points, and then our projected scores change. So we have one Liberty winning 38-30. Then we have them winning 43-28, so by 8, by 14 points. And then the FEI, we have these teams pretty close together, but we have Liberty favored by 1. Now, the reason this is down here, this is average margin of victory, so you can see if a team is outscoring their opponents or underscoring, but then also this strength of schedule is key. So if you look here and you see Liberty's strength of schedule is 113th, and then NC State is 31st, I didn't know if NC State was going to be too big for them, if Liberty would be able to stay in this game. So this is one thing where it would pop out to me and I would look at it. Now I ended up going with Liberty, but I was real hesitant after digging into the game. And then down here we've got, this is the key indicators. This is new. And so when you put in this Vegas line, it's going to calculate a few things and it's going to spit some stuff out here. So right here you can see both models pick Liberty to cover. So if both models pick the same team, if it's more than 3 points, if it's between 3 and 7 points and both models agree, it's going to say lean. If it's over 7 points, so you can see here we're 12 and 19 different, it's going to say pick. So both models pick Liberty to cover. So here you would play Liberty plus 4.5. They end up losing by 1. I think it was 15-14, and they missed a field goal at the end. So either way, it was a tight game, but anytime you see this and it looks like it's too far one-sided, look at the strength of schedule. Make sure they're within 20 or 30 spots of each other. And then over here, if we got a projected spread that's over 3 points different, like here they're getting plus 4.5, we have a minus 1.3, so we're 5.8 different. It's going to pop up and just give you a little indicator, just say, hey, we're over 3 point different than the actual spread. And then if there's a significant difference in schedule strength, it's going to pop up and just say, hey, there's a significant difference in schedule strength, so that's something to pay attention to. And then if there's nothing, these will be blank. And then, for example, this game, you could see Liberty has a huge rush game against a bad rush D, but again, strength of schedule, we got to factor that into play. And then over here, you've got NC State, who has a good pass game. Well, Liberty's got a good pass D, but again, we had strength of schedule that we had to worry about. Well, this ended up being, the FEI numbers end up being really close because this was a 1 point game. Liberty should have won the game, but they ended up losing by 1. So this spread was almost perfect. So taking the 4.5 was the way to go. So that is the overview of the sheet and what to look at in the new part. So now I want to look at a couple of games. So one we had, let's see, Northern Illinois. I think this is the game I showed in the other tutorial, and Ball State was minus 14.5. Okay, so here, this is a game that we had last Thursday night, and you can see here that Ball State is a better team on these FEI rankings, and the projected line, we have Ball State minus 5. Well, the actual line is Ball State minus 14.5, so laying more than 2 touchdowns, so we have a difference of 9.4, so that's going to intrigue us. So here, there's nothing that really jumps out. The teams don't jump off of the page by any means. And then you come down here, and you look at Northern Illinois, run game, nothing exciting. Pass game, nothing exciting. Looks like Ball State's got a really good opportunity to run the ball, but passing, they're really good, but they've got a good pass defense. So nothing really jumps out here, but it's something you always want to double check. And then you come over here, schedule strength, 88th versus 121. They're both at the bottom 25%. I'm not too worried about that. But over here, this jumps out at me, this average victory margin. You have Northern Illinois winning by 18.3 and them losing by 2. Now, given I know this is only 1 or 2 games, but still it's something to kind of look at. And then our indicators, we have both models are picking Northern Illinois to cover. We have a projected spread of more than 7-point different than Vegas. And then we have a significant difference in schedule strength. So not too worried about 90 versus 120. That's fine. A significant difference in the spread. That does intrigue me for a play here. And then our two models, we've got it going 31 to 24, and then we've got 34 to 24, and then 32 to 27. So we've got Ball State winning the game by 6.5, 10.5, and then 5. Well, if we play on Northern Illinois, we're getting plus 14.5 points. So that's significant. It's covering on all 3 of these models here by a good margin. The final score of this game ended up being Ball State winning 31 to 25. So this right here was almost right on the dot. And this projected line was almost on the money. So Ball State ended up winning by 6. We had a projected line of 5.1. And then over here we had 31-24, and the final score was 31 to 25. So that one was almost on the dot. So that's one way to look at it. And then let me look at, this is a game, Mississippi State and Georgia. And I ended up laying off of this one. So Georgia was minus, 25, 25.5, somewhere around there. And so this popped up and said, okay, Georgia should be favored by about 17 points, but they're actually laying 25, so this would point us over to playing on Mississippi State. Well, when you look at it, Georgia's only averaging 29 points per game, Mississippi State about 17. So, I was like, that's kind of intriguing. I want to look into this a little more. The total yardage we had fairly close. If you see 150 difference, that's when you want to kind of red flag, and I might put a little indicator down here for next week. And then when you look here, I see downgrade, big upgrade. So the big upgrade here was for Mississippi State, who's getting 25 points with the 18th passing game, and this is based off yards versus a very rough pass defense. Georgia, pretty much wash there. And this would tell me Mississippi State's not going to be able to run the ball, but they're really good at passing against a pass defense. So, hey, maybe they're going to stay in this game. And so our model here both picked Mississippi State to cover. And so we had it 28 to 14. So we had Georgia winning by 14 here. Well, this one, since we had such a significant change here at 80 spot difference, it should have brought it a little closer. So we had 28 to 20. So we had it an 8-point game. And then if you take the FEI projected line, you get them winning by 17. Well, all 3 of these are inside the 25-point number that we're getting with Mississippi State. However, I faded this game because I was worried the schedule strength was still pretty good, but Mississippi State didn't have any games that really, I go back and look at common opponents, the last 5 games, kind of figure out what I want to do. And I was worried about it. I didn't know if they would be able to do anything at all. So the sheet says play on Mississippi State plus 25. I didn't, but it's a game I wanted to go back and look at and kind of show people my thought process, how you could have came to this, and just look at it from there. So the final of this game ended up being 31 to 24. So getting pretty close to this number here. So Georgia ended up winning by 7, and we had them winning in this model, winning by 8.3. So this was really close to the actual number. And the reason we had a difference in these two numbers is, remember, this one is looking at the 96th offense versus a top defense, and the 38th offense versus the 32nd defense. So it's going to skew heavy here because of these numbers. So that's why it's 14. But if you look at the specific split, which this is the one that I really like, you've got this and says, okay, Mississippi State's downgrading here, but Mississippi State's upgrading here. So it's giving them a benefit for this advantage. And then Georgia's kind of a wash both ways. They're within 20 spots, but this is a jump for Mississippi State. and this one ended up being pretty good. So if you see a significant difference in these numbers down here on our success paths, then definitely kind of lean on this model. And if these are a wash and you're just looking at the overalls, then you kind of want to lean on this one. I typically play on games if both of these are in agreement, and then this one I'll take into account, but I don't necessarily need it. But if both of these are covering by 3 to 7 or 7 more, that's a game that I will look into further and dig into. Just make sure when you put in a new game that you change this number, because it will change a few of the stats and a few of the indicators. Let me see. Let me look at one more game. Actually, we've already looked at that. So Western Michigan and Central Michigan. Let me say Western Michigan. Okay, yeah, so this is the one I think we looked at in the beginning. So this one ended up being 52 to 44, Western Michigan winning. And here, schedule strength is good. Western Michigan is a dog, but winning by 4.5 points. And I think I went over this game first, but anyways, I'm just going to let you look at it again. So we had it winning by 7 in both models, 4 in this model, and they're getting points, so that was an easy play there. And they end up winning the game 52-44. A lot of points in that game, 96, and we had it up to 73.5, so that's pretty good. Anyways, but this is what the NCAA betting sheet looks like. I wanted to update the tutorial because I added the success pass, I added the schedule strength, average margin of victory, I've added the key indicators down here, I flipped this and did the 2 instead of the 3, and then I added a spot to put our Vegas numbers. So just wanted to get it updated, so next week if you guys are looking at it, you will be able to tell what's going on. Anyways, good luck guys, and we'll talk to you soon.